everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Do With podcast. I am catching up with a couple teen entrepreneurs that I get the honor and privilege of working with at WIT, whatever it takes. We've got two co-founders with us today. I'm going to hand it off to one of them to intro the other one, and the other one will intro their co-founder. Makes it a little bit more exciting and more interesting on the podcast instead of just me sitting here reading introduction. So Sebastian, kick it off. Introduce us to your co-founder. Tell us who he is and what you all do.
Yeah, so Barrett Dung is a sophomore in high school in the Bay Area. He enjoys doing water polo, among many other sports, and helped co-found Clore with me in late 2021, where we develop wildfire retardants that are placed around structures or important places you want to protect before a wildfire and create a long-term protection during the fire for the house.
Barrett, who's this guy who's hanging out with us today?
Yes, his name is Sebastian Burkhart. He is also a sophomore in high school, but he is 1 year older than me, so kind of balances out there. And Sebastian likes to play soccer, and then we met in middle school, and it was like instant friendship, guys like to call it. And together we started Clore.
All right. So we got the co-founders of Clore. Sebastian, looks like you are working on something. Are you working on something when we're talking? No, you're good.
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. I want you to look at the camera, look right into the camera. Right here. Let the audience see you so they can connect with you. Okay. All right. So I haven't chatted with these guys in a couple of weeks. We were going to chat last week, but then something came up. So now I have a chance to connect with them. And I thought, why not do a podcast episode and have a chat with them to hear what's been new and exciting with their business. So tell us, what's anything new and exciting since I last chatted with all of you?
Sure, I'll kick it off then. Since we last talked, which I believe was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think it's 3 weeks ago now, Barrett and I have been working hard on really working on funding and possibly figuring out the sales methods and production problems for this summer so we can have a large rollout of our product. We found a manufacturing plant in Texas that would be able to produce this product for us at prices we like and the speed we enjoy, leaving all the hassle for someone else to do of the production so we can focus on the sales. And we looked at possibly some of our competitor companies to see what their sales methods are and who works on their sales teams, and are possibly trying to onboard some of them to our companies. There's some other things, but I'm going to pass it over to Barrett.
Stealing people from other companies. You're going out and recruiting from your competitors. Is that what's happening right now?
Kind of.
So tell us how you're doing that.
We're just reaching out to people we think that could benefit or benefit both themselves and Clore by joining Clore, and are looking at what skills they could bring to us and expertise that we don't have, and are looking to try to build partnerships, especially because we're on the earlier stage, for them to lead teams here where they either might have not been leading teams at the previous company, or just an opportunity at a startup where there's a large potential of quick growth that you wouldn't see at some of these larger companies.
Okay. What do you think? Are you involved in this process too, Barrett? Are you out there recruiting?
Yeah, although I will say I'm not doing like as much recruiting as Sebastian is. I mean, obviously we have different roles, tasks that are set up for each other, and we kind of like it that way. I think it helps us, very effective. And just kind of like make the best out of our time, kind of like that. But I will say though, Sebastian and I, we've both been in contact with like the people that we're trying to hire. And obviously we're trying to take the negotiation kind of at a slower pace than maybe you would see other companies do, because obviously, first things first, we're minors. And we want to make sure that it's clear on both sides that, maybe we're not 18 yet. And I think that's really important because we don't want like to hire them and realize, oh, we're not like 18, and then it's kind of a big mess, all that comes along with that.
So are you leading with that? Are you leading with that you're a teen-led business from the get-go, or are you holding back on that until later?
To an extent, yeah. We're trying to like kind of like flex the fact that we're teen entrepreneurs, but at the same time kind of show that our product, our business is like as equally as effective as maybe others and competitors, if not better.
And what's the reaction been with when people with you when you say that to them?
Honestly, like not a lot of them are that surprised, to be quite honest. I mean, obviously some of them are. And when we talk to like some people that we're talking to right now in terms of hiring, I mean, they seem, pretty surprised, but at the same time, they still seem very willing to work with us, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. So you're not seeing them hesitate because they're teenagers. They're still interested in connecting and potentially working for your company.
Yeah, yeah.
How many people are you trying to hire right now?
We're trying to hire like around 2 to 3 people. Obviously, like with the people that we're trying to hire, they have like specific people that they want to work with, which is totally understandable. And you kind of see this like throughout other people when you're trying to hire as well. So kind of like in a sense, it's kind of like a consulting firm, but at the same time, it's kind of more specifically on these 2, 3 people.
Okay. And when do you think you're going to bring on your first employee? What's that timeline looking like?
Sebastien, you want to give them an update on that?
Sure. You always try to say end of the month, but that's like a day or two until that happens. But
Yeah, I was just looking at the calendar. So in 5 days.
probably mid-May. We're negotiating with them a contract, and we feel like if we set a deadline, either we're going to get a deal that we feel like we don't like because we rushed into it, or we're just not going to get a deal at all. So we obviously don't have a hard deadline set up, but we intend near mid-May, especially before school gets off, so we can really start getting the systems in place that are needed, like what are some examples? Like videos for people that buy the product and how to use it, setting up brochures so then we can go to events and just have them to hand out, and getting a large supply of production already in a warehouse. So then once summer goes off, we can work with them directly on the sales part, which they specialize in, and really get it going into fire season to protect as many homes as possible.
I know at one point you had talked about having your warehouse in California. What made you decide on Texas?
Yeah, so we are still going to do a warehouse in California. We just aren't going to do the production in-house because there are so many different things about like hiring people, then getting insurance for those people, then doing like healthcare insurance and doing social security, then like all the labor laws, and then all the materials we're going to need for the production. Then like there's a million different incoming things, and that would decrease the price by such a small amount that at this point on the levels of production we want, it would be hundreds of dollars saved for hours and hours and hours of stress, which we don't see the value in because we can not worry about those $100 and focus instead about growing the business, which the time we put in will be worth way more than that, and we'll be able to faster grow and serve more homes.
Okay, but tell me why you chose. So you're still going to have a warehouse in California and one in Texas.
We're just outsourcing the production.
Okay. And what made you pick Texas?
We're working with a company that has their logistics base in Texas and some other states, but Texas is the closest one to California and has the best production capabilities to fluctuate as needed. And they're near some rail lines, so it's simple for us.
And so do you know what's going to be the first number of like product that you're going to be producing to take out to market?
What do you mean by that? Like number of different individual products, or like?
No, I'm just curious because you said you're trying to get ready for fire season. I'm wondering how much are you planning on selling? Like how much product are you planning on moving?
So we're gonna probably buy between $7,000 to $10,000 earlier on for the end of the summer. We hope to move in the next 12 months anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 gallons. But we're not going to buy all that up front because that's going to take a lot of space to store, even though they're stored in individual gallons. It's just going to take a lot of shelf space. and the prices don't go that much down with larger orders.
Mhm.
So everything's going to fluctuate depending on if we do more of a direct to consumer or a business to business. If we do business to business, sometimes we're going to be selling 1,000 gallons a month, sometimes maybe even 0. But with a direct to consumer, it might be more stable. We're just going to need to see where we think we could best fit.
Yes, that's a big deal, even to people listening. Like, you know, people get so excited about taking something to market, but you got to take into consideration, like, how are you selling it? Who's buying it? How much do you buy up front? If you're not producing it in house, you got to think about like, what kind of order size do you want to have? So that's why I was just curious if you had decided that, because I know you've been really pushing to be ready for fire season. Are you lining up customers now so that you can announce when you launch it, or what's the plan of making sure that how are you? I think it'd be interesting for the listener to understand, because it doesn't matter if it's scrunchies or if it's shoes or if it's this, what you're creating. Like, people want to kind of figure out, like, how do you know what the number is of, that you want to produce, and how are you gauging that? Do you already have people interested in buying your product? Do you already have a business that wants to put it on their shelves?
Yeah, so we are working on a strategic partnership. It's still in the works, a little bit low key, but it's that's a partnership that would, when we start working with them, we believe we'll be moving hundreds, thousands, possibly in the future when they're grown to us a good size, tens of thousands of gallons. And they work to help make communities, HOAs, and even towns prepared for wildfires. And we're working with them, so then they provide Clore, because there's a lot of benefits of using Clore compared to other products. And they're a smaller company right now, and that's one of the main interests we have right now. But a lot of these other interests won't be that hard to gain. We just need to start attending a lot of events, which we're really excited to hopefully do in the future.
Oh, tell us the events that you're going to be attending.
Barrett has been doing a lot of research on this, so I feel like it's only polite if I let him speak a little bit about this. I don't want to take his opportunity to talk about this, because he's done a lot of work on this.
Okay, tell us where the audience is going to be able to find you.
Yes. So right now, I think one of the biggest things that we're trying to prepare for is like what we call these Firewise events. And by the way, there are like Firewise events like almost every single county all around California that you can find. And these are kind of like local like events that are dedicated to like preventing fires, or more in general, like this fire research or like fire prevention kind of like expo type of thing. And Sebastien and I, we've just really been preparing to go to these events, whether that's like getting like a business license, which some require a business license, right? Mm-hmm. And just doing all of this research to make sure that we're best prepared when we do go to these events. And right now there's like national like wildfire, preparation day, something that a bunch of like local communities are working on. And obviously we won't have time to make it to those, but obviously that kind of brings you, or like to the reader, or not the reader, the viewer, kind of more of like an idea of what is expected at these events and some things that might go on there.
So are you booked anywhere yet, or you have to apply to be able to have a table somewhere? Or tell us what's going on there.
So we're not like booked at any sense.
Okay. That's honest. I mean, that's the Do It podcast is not a podcast where we bullshit what's going on. I mean, that's a big thing. The listener here is usually a teenager, or it's an adult that's interested in supporting teens, and they want to make sure that teens are not just, talking things up, but like actually speaking, the real, because business, that's how you get people to step in and be able to help you. Because if we act like we have it all together and we've got ourselves all, perfect, how can the people that are listening or watching know how to support you? Or maybe they might know people to help. So I was just curious though, if you had, I know Sebastien had said that you guys were going to be making the rounds. I just was curious if you'd booked anything yet, or if you had an event coming up that we could promote, or they sound like they're almost like conferences that you could attend.
Yeah, kind of like conferences, but more of like kind of like a trade show or like an expo.
Okay.
That's kind of what I like to call it. And obviously like we aren't booked anywhere though, but more like we're trying to reach out to some of those local events, specifically in different counties like Sonoma County up like in Northern California, and maybe a couple down in like Southern or like Central Valley. But the thing is, like, we don't really want to go anywhere that's so far because obviously, you know, we're kind of limited on where we can go and then where we can drive as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are all real limitations that especially teen entrepreneurs face. So you're not alone in that. I'm sure I'm thinking there's a lot of opportunity within where you live, because I know you live in the Bay Area, and obviously that is a big issue. The fire season is a big issue there. So I would think that that there might be some opportunities for you, whether those are trade shows coming up in the summer, maybe. I'm not sure. You would know better than I do about all that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are a couple of different like activities, events that are going on, definitely during the summer and definitely during the fire season. More so like a little bit before the fire season. So all of these like different communities, HOAs and all that, those people can prepare for different wildfire seasons. And obviously we want to try and get to those trade shows around that time, right? So a lot of people can get to learn more about our product, and then we kind of like advertise as well. And I mean, it goes like from all the little things like preparing posters, brochures, all that, and even like bringing a couple of samples that we're kind of slowly starting to prepare for. Like we have a couple of brochures, and then we also have like a couple of videos, although we're planning to do a little bit more and post them on like our website, social media, obviously. That's all really good to do. So obviously like these little things that we're doing to prepare, and most importantly, just like finding people that are interested in just going to these shows and then giving our best out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's even how you brand it, right? I mean, you got to brand your piece of the real estate at a trade show. Like what are you going to do to like bring people over to your table, over to your section? That's a strategy. Have you all thought about that? Like how you're going to get people to want to stop by your booth, so to speak, and learn about you?
I mean, I thought of this idea of like bringing in some ice cream or something like that. Not sure how that's
Yeah,
gonna
bringing in food and incentivizing people to stop by with candy and food never hurts. Ice cream might melt, so I don't know if that's a good that might not last the whole time, but yes, sometimes like putting those kinds of things out on your table gets people to come by. I've also seen people do little giveaways if they drop off their business card or information to kind of get involved. Sebastien, have you given some thought about how you're going to get people to want to pay attention to you at these trade shows you're planning on attending?
Yeah, so Barrett and I always know that if there's something we don't know, we try to get someone else who knows it to help us. So that's really where these teams we want to hire are going to come in, because they've done dozens of these shows and they've been successful at them. So where we fall behind in these shows, they're going to be able to push us ahead. They might say ice cream, or they might say giveaway, or they might even say light stuff on fire, make people walk towards the fire because they're going to see fire. You never know. I definitely want to see what they have to say and see what good advice they could bring us, because I just want to always do the best and know that that might not always come from me.
Well, that's a really good point. I mean, I think people that are listening or watching, I mean, that's a really good takeaway. You're not meant to be excellent and great at all the things. It's not possible. And so why not bring in people that are experts and great at the things that maybe you might come up short on? And it's not personal if we come up short in certain areas. It's just reality, because we all have different strengths and different gifts. I know that, gosh, I remember one time doing an event, like a trade show type thing, and like no one came by my booth. And what was interesting was, to the listener and the viewer, it was just the wrong place for me. And not the wrong place in terms of where my table and booth was, but it was just the wrong conference for me. It was the wrong kind of exhibit conference for me. And I think that sometimes in the beginning of launching something, you can say yes to things because you feel like, I just want to get out there. I just want to get in front of people. But it is so important to find the right place for your product to shine and for you to shine. And sometimes people think, oh, I've got to go to 10 things, but maybe you only need to go to 3 because the other 7 have nothing to do with what you're doing. And they're not even the people that are going to buy your product. So I think it's really interesting that you've done that research to figure out where you're going to go. What's the date of the first one that you might be able to attend? Like, do you have a goal for one that's coming up?
We both have APs, so right after APs are done, I think like the 13th, the 14th of May, those might be some we're interested in looking at.
Okay.
The nice thing is our partner that we've been talking to is going to a lot of these events. And if we're able to possibly put our product on their desk,
Yeah.
especially earlier on, or business card, or even a QR code, I've seen those are really effective.
Yeah.
That might do the trick for us because this summer we're definitely going to be at some, but earlier on late May, early June, we're going to try to attend some. Barrett and I are trying to figure them out. Barrett's got a whole spreadsheet figured out with all the dates and all the stuff needed to go to them.
Love it, Barrett. Always the one behind the scenes. That's what I mean, that seems to be your strength, Barrett, is the behind the scenes. So let's talk to because you are co-founders, and a lot of people that listen to the podcast do have a co-founder, or they're a solo founder, but they're interested in learning, like, how do people do it with two people? Barrett, tell us what makes it work for the two of you, and how have you divided up the tasks?
Yes, definitely. What Sebastian and I both like to do is just like creating tasks for us to do, whether that's like we tackle them together or alone. We like to split up the work. I think that's what we find is the most effective. And obviously, like when there's something big going on, like strategic partnerships, we try to fill each other in. And for example, like recently, Sebastian has mostly been dealing with the hiring and just talking to different people and like what they think, as well as negotiating. And in the meantime, like Sebastian has mentioned, I've mostly been doing like Firewise prep, like just doing spreadsheets and all that. At the same time, like we want to constantly work on our pitch deck too, as we continuously like pitch to other people, investors, whatever that is. Like you never know when you're going to use it, so we want to always have it prepared, and that's something that like we both like to do, kind of like in our free time as well. But generally speaking, like to split up tasks, we use like Google Spaces as well. We used to use Slack, but then we kind of switched. Finding the right like workplace is also very important. Yeah, very important for us. So we can stay connected. And we used to do it like through text, and then we realized, oh, that's not really effective. And then we went through Slack, and then we realized, yeah, that's kind of like inconvenient. So we kind of just switched to like Google. And it's like all in one place, which Sebastian and I kind of just like it like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, finding the way that you want to communicate. For me, it's Slack, but for some people it's not, you know, and people have their things. And I think that's so great to kind of figure out what your best space is. I know we went to Slack at WIT because we were bringing in all these different CEOs and entrepreneurs, and we're like, they can't really like text teenagers, and we don't really want them to. I mean, do we want them to be Instagram friends and be DMing each other? That doesn't really feel appropriate. And so it was like, okay, let's bring in these adults via Slack, because we'll bring in some adults to some of our classes, and then the teens can ask the expert like all these different questions on Slack, and it feels like a safe space, like a safer place, and privacy wise, to do that on Slack. But that's a really good point to everybody listening. And like, you got to find the place that works for you, and you can try things out and then you just move on. And it sounds like you two have found the place that works the best for you. So tell us a little bit about we've talked about, okay, you've got some hiring going on, you've got your warehouse and your production spaces figured out. It sounds like you haven't started producing the product yet, because that's going to be about a 10K investment. Did I hear that right, Sebastian?
No, around 30 to 40, 50, 60, depending.
Okay.
On how
So
much
between 30 and 60. So that's going to be the investment that needs to get made in order to get some product made. And then the hope then would be to then have it out there in your warehouse in California, and then start shopping it around, or doing direct to consumer, or out of a storefront.
It's going to be a mix of all of them.
Okay.
So we can't really say which channel works best.
Right.
The businesses we think will be good deals, these applicators, but we wanted to the direct to consumer because we always wanted to do something where if you wanted to protect your own house from wildfires, you could do that. A big issue was for the longest time that you either need to get one of these like, applicator services, which tend to run you thousands and thousands of dollars, or don't really have much protection. So we do want to do the direct to consumer space. We're just going to figure out how much ad spend we want to do. And with storefronts, there'll be a number of that, but we think the strategic partnerships and the direct consumer will be a large number of our cash flow.
Okay, that's going to be fun because then we'll do a podcast when you finally figure out what's your sweet spot. Yeah. And we'll be able to use this as a flashback to like when you weren't quite sure which way you wanted to go. Tell us what you're excited about that's going to come up in the next 6 months. What are you all, working towards? What can the listener and viewer get excited about on your behalf?
Barrett, you want to start that off?
Sure. I think personally for me, personally, I'm really excited that we're going to start sales up, hopefully, right? Obviously, Sebastien brings up a good point, especially with business. You don't really know what's going to happen. That goes with almost everything for life, but obviously sometimes you don't know what's going to happen and you have to experiment a little. So I'm excited to do some of that with Sebastien and other people that we might have on board. I'm excited going to a bunch of these Firewise events and hopefully starting the direct to consumer sales up. Because it's something that Sebastien and I have always thought about. If you want to protect your home, you should buy some of our product and spray it around. But obviously, when we started digging into this industry and all this a lot more, we just have to realize maybe it wasn't that simple. Just telling people to spray something around their home.
Okay, so it sounds like we've got some goals for the next few months. Let's talk about some lessons. What can people learn from you? I'm sure you've had many successes, and then I'm also sure that you've probably had a few setbacks. So for the teen entrepreneur who's listening, what can you teach them about how to navigate setbacks? Can you give an example of a setback and how you worked through it, both of you? I'll let Sebastien kick it off.
Ooh, that's a great one. I almost want to say you're gonna get setbacks. So what? And if you react about the setback, that's the issue. There's a good reaction, there's a bad reaction. I love the setbacks because if you're having a setback, that means you're at least moving forward. Because if you're staying at the same place, you're not going to be affected. So you're clearly making some sort of progress if there's a setback. It's kind of like opening doors in a mystery house, it might be a dead end, but one way it's not going to work, and you just try the other way. You take time. I almost want to say I know people say, oh, I have a setback, I'm going to stop, or even, oh, I'm going to take a couple of weeks, months, or even days. I think you get a setback, it's you got to get right back up because you have new information. You have information on what didn't work. That's nearly as good as what did work.
No, those are some good takeaways. If you're listening, I would have had the notepad out or the phone or whatever you're doing to take your notes on. That's some good stuff there. I love that idea of, embracing the setback, because the only way you can have a setback is if you tried to move forward, if you tried to do something versus just staying stagnant. That's a great piece of advice. What about you, Barrett?
Yes. Now I wouldn't say mine is as motivational as Sebastien's is, but I will say that I think, especially if you have a co-founder, I think there is going to be some sort of disagreement, and at the same time, there's also going to be a bunch of hard decisions that you have to make. And I think my advice to everyone out there facing these hard decisions or, anything challenging is honestly, like Sebastien said, to just go on with your life, make what your gut thinks of it, listen to your conscience and all that. And, try to make the best out of what you have. For an example, we recently had a bunch of different people reach out to us And then there are also like a couple other companies with like grant money and all that. Obviously, like there are going to be a lot of terms and conditions, as we like to call that, on that. Um, and obviously, like some of them are really hard to pass on, but at the same time, we're faced with like difficult decisions on, oh, what will happen if we like don't take this, or what will happen if we do take it. I think like the biggest lesson I have out there is to just listen to what your gut says, and at the same time, just try and incorporate what different people think, and incorporate that into your decision.
That's a really good point, because people think, oh, I just want to take the money, or I just want to take the partnership, because maybe you feel almost like in a desperate state, because you wonder if you're going to be able to do it without their help, or maybe it's okay if you have to give away this much of the company. But I like that you're taking pauses and thinking about it and analyzing it, because that's what everybody should do. I don't think that, I think people need to pay attention to that. Sebastien, if you're listening to the podcast, you can't tell this, but Sebastien is like looking very eager, like he has something to say. So Sebastien.
Yeah, another thing is, don't take anything too personal. Whether that's your co-founder, whether that's someone else. I know there's times I've gotten frustrated at Barrett, but am I really getting frustrated at Barrett, or at how things are moving, or how paperwork is, or some like thing? It's nothing personal in life. If someone says no to a deal, don't take it personal. They might still have connections, they want to help you. Maybe it's just not a good fit. Like, if you take everything as personal, people probably won't want to work with you, because they're gonna fear that you're gonna get angry at them and frustrated at them, and everything will deteriorate very quickly. Barrett and I would definitely not be still here working together, if we took everything super personal. But like, you get a rejection, so what? And if you let that stop you, you're never going to get anywhere.
It's true. And it is hard. I know from experience, it's hard not to take things personally. Sometimes I try to, and I think it's important when we work with people, although I don't have a co-founder, I do have partners, and I do always want to try to bring my best self to the table. And it sounds so elementary and trite, but even for me, I'll find myself like in these conversations, and I can feel myself getting irritated. And sometimes I have to ask myself, like, am I hungry? Like, am I like just like stressed out and just on like high caffeine? And so now I'm like taking this out on this conversation. Have I moved my body? It's always important, I think, to keep yourself healthy and active, and sometimes stepping away from a conversation before, if things are getting a little heated, step away, go move your body for 10 minutes, go for a walk, get some fresh air, come back and see if it's still that severe and that serious. And also to like Sebastien said, I mean, sometimes it's so normal as entrepreneurs, we just get frustrated because things don't feel like they're moving at the pace that we want. You're not getting the answers at the pace that you want, and you want more because you think it's going to be better. And if it was happening faster, it would be better. And I do know, having been in this game for a long time, the more we all can enjoy the journey, the better, because that's where the magic is. I know people think the magic is in the outcome of getting and landing the deal or whatever that is, but I think there's a lot of magic in the in-between spaces, and you don't want to miss those, because all you're doing is thinking about how can I push to get to a certain outcome. So I think it's great that you're sharing all these ideas with our young listeners, because they can be inspired by you. I also want to hear, I know you've been in WIT for a few months now, and you've had an opportunity to do some TV interviews, some speaking gigs, you've gotten some press, you've had some interviews. So why don't you share with us, like, was that easy for you to do that kind of public speaking, and to get on TV, or to be quoted? Probably it wasn't hard to get quoted in an article, but let's talk about those experiences for you. I see that big smile, Barrett. Talk to me about what's making you smile when I say all of this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just want to say that sometimes you just got to try your best. Whether that is like getting a feature in this article.
Yeah.
Right? You just gotta try your best. And although like public speaking to me isn't, generally speaking, isn't like my biggest strength, I feel like I've gotten like better at public speaking over time. Yeah, with like interviews, I remember like our first interview, and then now we're at this podcast, right? And I will say it's also kind of hard to keep my smile in.
Keep your smile on or gone?
Just like gone, trying to keep like a straight face,
Oh, I think you have a great smile, and there's lots to smile about when you're talking about a business that you founded. So I think that's something. It's funny when I even talk to people about you, I actually talk about how sometimes you try to hide your smile when we're talking about things by even moving your computer screen. So you're like hiding like underneath. He like shrinks underneath the screen. But I will give you right now public acknowledgement to anybody watching on YouTube, to anybody listening on any of the other channels that we post this. Barrett has made incredible strides in his public speaking and articulating his message and his wisdom and his work. And so that's only been in it like a few months, because we've only been working together for a few months. And I think like I've seen that. And what tips, Barrett, before I jump over to Sebastien, what tips would you give the teen who's nervous about their first TV interview or nervous about being on a podcast? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I think the general advice that I have is it's fine to make mistakes. It's fine to like smile, or like say something maybe you're not supposed to. I think the biggest takeaway though is that you learn something, or like you basically take something away from this experience. And also this goes for like anything in life, to be honest. Like you're going to make mistakes, but just go with it, right? It's not that big of a deal.
Okay, before I jump to Sebastien, I want to talk about something that's okay. Just everybody that if you're a new listener, you don't know this, but we don't do any prep for podcast interviews for WIT. We just jump on the Zoom room and we get going and we start chatting, because that's just the desired format of these interviews. So they don't get the questions ahead of time. But what I was just thinking about, Barrett, that I want you to talk about. What about when you got that Today Show piece? Did you know that I was going to bring that up? Is that why you're laughing, or you're just?
Yeah, to an extent.
Yeah, you two are like giggling right now. And I said, we got to share it. You got to share it on your Instagram, because that's part of the deal, is like, you got to promote your own business. You got to promote yourself personally. Like you got to, and like, why would you launch a business that you weren't proud of and that you didn't want to promote? And I think if I remember correctly, it was a little bit of like, oh, I don't really use the Instagram, which is why you didn't want to share it. But why was it really, Barrett, that you didn't want to put it on your personal Insta?
I think for the most part, honestly, like I was kind of scared that people were gonna see it, right? Especially considering that maybe I have a lot of people that add on Instagram, people from like middle school all the way, and it kind of is like, like, do I really like want this person to see it, but I think you just have to post it, kind of. You just have to do it. And when you do it, you realize maybe it's not that bad after all. Like you get all these comments, likes, even though I'm sure like a lot of people don't really care about the likes anymore. But I think it's also kind of validating to an extent.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Barrett. Like, I don't think we can pretend. I don't think it's honest to say that the likes don't matter. That takes a pretty evolved person to say, oh, I don't care if I get likes on things, especially when you're promoting something that's so personal, and close to your heart, your own business. So, but I think you did get some really positive comments, right? When you posted that, didn't you hear from people you hadn't heard from in a while?
Yeah.
So you survived.
I survived.
Okay. So Sebastien, we're getting close on time here, but I want to hear from you the tips that you would have for, you've spoken at South by Southwest EDU. You were my co-host at a big competition there. You've had a TV interview. You've also been interviewed for a Today Show blog. I do know the answer to this, but I guess I'll pretend like I don't know the answer to this for the sake of the audience. Did all of that come easy to you? Were you comfortable doing all of that?
Honestly, I feel like at the end of the day, you need to realize everyone's human. So it doesn't matter if you're talking to the boss of a company or the lowest level employee. Everyone at the end of the day basically is the same. And if you're going on press, you feel the worst at the beginning before you start because you're always thinking the worst case scenario. But people are always willing to talk to you. And if you respect their time, they'll respect yours. I've talked to plenty of people outside of WIT because we run a company, but like that have also been generous enough to give me some of their time. And something I've realized is months ago, I never ever would have thought that was possible. But I started to realize if you treat everyone with respect for their time and all that stuff, they're going to be more than happy to talk to you. And I thought that something you need to realize is the stress will hurt you because you'll perform poorly because you'll jump 2 lines ahead. You'll skip a word or two or something like that. But if you calm down and realize that they probably were in the same situation as you one time, you'll be fine. So I felt like I realized that pretty early on. So there was not too much of an issue, but before then it was like, oh my God.
Because full transparency, you're a little nervous for South by Southwest.
Yeah. And then halfway through, I'm like, this is really easy. I should never be worried for something again.
Oh my God, I laughed so hard I dropped my headphones fell off my head because I did see Sebastien before going on the stage and I wasn't sure. I mean, you seemed very nervous and there were just a couple, it was so normal, but truly being able to conquer that stage, it's like, whatever, right? I mean, you did it. And I think it's important because somebody listening or watching could be like, what's the big deal? You're just like standing behind a podium and like reading what you have to do. No, he was not allowed to do that. He wasn't allowed to have notes in his hand and do that. So he really had to rise to the occasion to MC an event and keep it going and talk about people and get their names right and all that kind of stuff. And he did that. So it sounds like that boosted your confidence a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. So we're coming up on the ends of our time here on the Do It podcast. So the next time that we tune in, so next time we have you on the podcast, tell me one thing that you hope has happened for your business and one thing that you hope has happened for yourself as an individual, as a leader, as an entrepreneur. I'll let Barrett go first.
Yeah. So personally, I think a big goal of mine is, or I should say for the company as a whole, is to have people that we bring on, is to have like what Sebastien was mentioning earlier, like the group of people that we were hiring, and hope to have attended. I would probably go out and say at least like 10 events that more people can learn, research about a product. And I think I won't give like a number on sales or anything. I think I should stick to like more general goals, because obviously the worst thing that could happen is like we set a goal and we don't make it, So for myself now, I think I want to become, generally speaking, a more confident person. That's a very broad goal, but also something that I think I can work on.
I'm really proud of you for saying that out loud, because that is a wonderful goal to have. I can tell you, as someone who's been in your orbit for a few months now, I've seen your confidence increase. And even today on this podcast, I mean, we haven't chatted in a couple of weeks, and I've already seen that growth. So you are well on your way to achieving that. So good, well done. I have no doubt that maybe you'll be hosting the podcast next time. Barrett will be in there. So confident he's co-hosting the Do It podcast. Okay, Sebastien, tell us, what would you like to be able to say about something that you've accomplished in the business and with yourself?
So could I possibly get a time frame on this next one? Because we're doing 3 years or 3 days,
You put your time frame on it, but tell us, the listener and the viewer, what time frame you're doing.
You talked about 6 months. Oh, what do you see yourselves in 6 months? So I'm going to go on that one because I can picture that far out relatively realistically.
Okay.
You get a couple of years, it's off the wire. But
okay,
I would say definitely gotten this strategic partnership fully figured out. have these people on board, warehouse fully set up, and I attend events at least for company representatives. Maybe we're not attending them, maybe that our hires are, having those hires done, obviously, and getting the traction numbers going that prove that there's at least 10% month-over-month growth.
And what about for yourself? How are you going to grow as a leader and entrepreneur, as a human?
That's a great question. I don't know. There's a lot of things I want to improve on. But I guess I'm gonna name one. Main one would probably be writing my emails, responding to emails. Sometimes there's a number of spelling mistakes. Because I try to get emails sent back as quickly as possible. And that leads to a number of spelling mistakes. Because I've seen it when people don't respond to your emails for a bit of time, and that frustrates me. So maybe not being like those people, but still taking a little bit more time and care and effort into the emails and something like that. I know that's a little obscure, but yeah.
No, that's good. That's a good, I mean, I understand that because sometimes I know in the beginning, and I really relate to that, Sebastian, I'm actually glad you brought it up. I thought it was like value, like a currency. If I got back to you super quick, like, oh my gosh, I'm like so efficient and I'm so quick and I'm so great because I get back to you so quickly. And similarly to you, sometimes I'd be writing those emails tired, or I'm walking my dog and I'm writing too fast and there'd be mistakes. And I realized 5 minutes or 15 minutes or 50 minutes is not that big of a difference. It's just that we're so used to an instant gratification, instant response world. So I think we can all do a little bit better of saying, like, let's pause, reread what we've written. Let's see if that's what we want to say. If that's the impression that we want to make, because we do know that spelling and grammar and things like that do make an impression. So I know that you kind of ended that by saying you think it's like, maybe like trite or small, but it's not. That's a great thing to put out there and a great reminder for everybody to take some time. And there's no prize for being the first person in someone's inbox. Well, I want to thank you both for being on the podcast today. Where can they find you if they want to follow your story, or they want to get involved, or they want to buy your product?
You can go to our website, clorefr.com. You can also find us on Instagram at clorefr. And you can check out our website. You can email us. You can just go to our website, click contact us. You can check out like everything that we've done so far at our website too, including like a bunch of the press features, and LinkedIn as well. If you guys have LinkedIn, feel free to connect with us. Just Barrett Dang and Sebastian Burkhart. And Clore, you can also follow Clore on LinkedIn.
Do you have a newsletter or a blog or anything?
Yes, we do have a blog, actually. You can just go to our website, clorefr.com/blog. Nice and easy and simple. And you can subscribe to our blog there. We'll have like a little bit of like company news and wildfire news kind of mixed together. And we hope that might be of interest to you guys.
Fantastic. Any final thoughts? I always like to give teens the final word on the Do WIT podcast.
I feel like you covered everything I had to say really well.
Okay. Barrett, anything else you want to say?
I think you covered it well as well, but I think maybe I can add that no one here is perfect, and I think we all did like a wonderful job today.
I love that positive note to end on. Everybody, please check out their Instagram, check out their website. We'll have more information in the caption on YouTube and in our show notes. And I hope that you will follow their journey. And I trust that we'll be seeing their product in the Ace Hardware stores and the Home Depots around the world. And we'll be able to say that you got to hear them first here on the Do WIT podcast. Thanks, everybody. Until next time, keep doing whatever it takes.